Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Sunday. End of the weekend is upon us, just about noon here, California time. September 8th, 2024 is the date. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 1.4 here in the green flag. Also, let's check out California, see what's going on here, see if we got any further uptick across this area following yesterday's events. In the last hour or so, in the red circles, there are a couple earthquakes here across the northern edge of the Garlock Fault shear zone. This is the area that's seen that 5.2 a number of weeks back here outside of Bakersfield. Still seeing some movement out here today. A bunch of twos from yesterday and a handful of those from today as well. Ridgecrest area about the same as yesterday. Now, as far as this movement around the Southern California area, around this, there's not really a fault system out here. They call it the Fontana earthquake sequence swarm area, just a region that sees occasional earthquakes out here. But yesterday and today brought a number of earthquakes out here in this area. If we want to include these two to the north here, got about 42 earthquakes, mainly from yesterday and today. I had to pull up the 7 days here because we're past the 24-hour threshold. So if I were to show just one day, that doesn't actually include all the events there from yesterday. So it's important to see what all is going on out here. There wasn't a whole lot of earthquake activity in the past week aside from today and yesterday. One earthquake there from the 3rd of September. So aside from that, 3.5 kicked it off yesterday at about 10 o'clock Saturday morning, and then we've seen a number of earthquakes following that event. Now, so far today, looks like only 2 earthquakes here being recorded, which is quite odd. 1.3 and a 1.4. The 1.3 being way up here. So technically, if you want to get down to the specifics, only 1 earthquake in this region so far today. And then prior to that, looks like earlier yesterday evening. So obviously, certain areas of the plate boundary come under quite a bit of strain through cycles, right? The plates are always moving around. Occasionally, when we get a whole bunch of broad-scale activity out here across the western areas of the Pacific plate, we'll see a temporary backing off in terms of the intensity of the earthquake activity here across the eastern Pacific. And then various other plates here get, I can't really say shuffled around because it doesn't move all that fast, but they do get applied further pressure, a little bit of release of pressure here in certain areas. So when things are really ramping up out here across the western Pacific, like we've seen yesterday in this area, a lot of activity here late last night. And it seems as though right about the time here when we've seen all this broad-scale activity is when we seen our last earthquake from yesterday there in Southern California. Aside from that one, that just a little one this morning. But about 1910 here, right? That's when the intensity of the earthquake swarming halted there in Southern California, is the time that things really started to ramp up out here across this area of the plate boundary. So about 1910, everything halted. Got 5 here, a 5, multiple 5s here that really seem to kick up in this area and temporarily relieve strain out here across the eastern area of the Pacific plate. Thousands of miles away, right? But got to remember, these plates are just kind of floating out here on some liquid, so to speak, down with the heated areas below. A lot of convection takes place underneath this area. So when one region, gets active here, it's common to see a little bit of less activity out here. But that doesn't mean it's done and over with. It's a cycle. Things come and go. Prior to this activity here yesterday, Southern California in general was just seeing some microquake activity on any given day. So it may take a couple days. It may kick up again today. Who knows? But we'll continue to watch that. It is elevated activity in a sequence of events that we've seen here over the last several weeks in various areas around the plate boundary, which is the San Andreas Fault here. I covered this a lot last night here with the ongoing activity up and down the region, the Garlock Fault shear zone from Ridgecrest westward here. Actually, looks like we got a little bit of movement here in the middle of these two swarming areas, 1.2 But yeah, I mean, as I was mentioning, you put together all of this activity here in the last several weeks, and it just puts the strain out here on the San Andreas Fault at question here. Whether this is going to be the domino effect here with all these swarms around it that triggers a big one. It's very possible, very possible. So we'll continue to watch that. Definitely have to keep an eye on it. All right, so specifically today, aside from the activity around the Ontario and Rancho Cucamonga area, the Fontana earthquake sequence area out there, what's been going on here? Let's see, a couple ones this morning. Got some movement on the southern end here of the San Jacinto fault zone. One near the Salton Sea, about 6 o'clock this morning here. And some stress quakes just off of the plate boundary right around this bend area. This always gets me a little bit nervous here because that's I think one of the highest areas here around the San Bernardino mountain range that gives a good indicator of how much strain is building up out here. And it's been over 300 years since the big full rupture out here of the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. So we do have a little bit of earthquake activity in this area today. Mostly smaller microquakes here. A couple ones in there as well, just after midnight, 1 o'clock, 6, 8 in the morning or so local time. So things have not completely calmed down here at all. 2.4 from yesterday. Let's see what we got for 2.5 and above. Not a whole lot here, but got to remember, just because it's above or below a certain magnitude is just a little option here on the chart. These are still earthquakes regardless if it's a 2.4 or a 2.5. So we'll continue to watch Southern California, Nevada area. Most of this movement here, well, looks like it's from today here. Couple fours, not couple fours, but around 4 o'clock this morning, 7, 8 for some ones stirring up out there in Nevada. This has been an area of interest as well. And it sits in a linear fashion out here. If we pull back the last 30 days or so, a lot of activity started with this earthquake swarm northwest of Las Vegas, which essentially can be a factor in this region right here. You got the Garlock Fault shear zone and numerous other faults out here in between these two areas. But it's you can pretty much draw a line right here, all the way over to here, and then a line up north. What about this area right here? The Garlock Fault shear zone southward into this chunk of land that's, I'm sure that's got a lot of strain building up here across the plate boundary. But either way, it's been an interesting sequence here of swarms, various swarms out here across western Nevada, all coinciding with earthquake activity across the Garlock Fault shear zone and southward towards on the west side of the San Andreas Fault. A lot of activity stirring up out there, folks. So just something to watch, right? And more so, we've seen about 1,300 earthquakes more in this time period compared to last year at this time. Say from the 1st of 2023 to September 8, 2023, there was about a 1,300 to 1,400 less earthquakes last year than compared to the same time frame of this year. So that should tell you something alone, that we are on a major increase out here across this area, and just specifically Southern California. 3.4 from yesterday out there outside of the Great Salt Lake City area. We checked that out last night. It's got some previous swarms there in the past couple months. Washington, mostly from yesterday out here, it looks like. Not a whole lot stirring up out there across the Pacific Northwest. Same for Northern California. Bay Area has been awfully quiet out here. Awfully quiet. Most of the activity, again, seems about this chunk of land, this shear zone southward. Texas, what's going on out there in Texas? I kind of missed Texas already. I was out there a couple times earlier this year with a little bit of R&R down here around the Gulf of Mexico. And also some storm chasing that me and Missy Mimi's did. I missed the thunderstorms, that's for sure. I'm so tired of the 100-degree weather. A couple earthquakes out around the oil fields here, and some down south of San Antonio. A little separate swarm going on around the Three Rivers area. Choke Canyon Reservoir. Yeah, got a little decent swarm going on there. I bet you anything there's some oil fields out here. Let's see. What do you think? What do you guys think? See all those little checkered boxes here? Those are indeed oil. You can barely see them because this model doesn't really zoom in, but there's a lot of holding tanks out here on each of these individual pads. Oil pumping operations, and could be some fracking operations included out there as well. And that's where all the earthquake activity is occurring, specifically in those areas, and that will continue. Some of these earthquakes can get rather large as well. That's the future of the earthquake activity for Texas and Oklahoma and anywhere else that's got all these massive oil fields. Eastern portion of the country, pretty quiet. I can't help but wonder if maybe some of that is relieving or putting off some bigger activity out here across the new Madrid seismic zone, which sits right about here. That's a major seismically active area. The last big earthquakes were back in 1811, 1812 with a series of 7.0 earthquakes. We learned about that in school, and of course secondary school, big time potential out there. But I don't think 1811, 1911, 2011, 200 years of built up strain out here. I don't know if that's quite enough here to produce some big earthquake activity out here, just due to the limiting factor of the slow accumulation slip rate out here. It's not quite, it's not like the plate boundaries here. Along the plate boundary, you build up, potentially inches a year. And as far as the slip rate goes, the accumulated slip rate. So not 100% too worried about the new Madrid seismic zone for now. All right, let's take a look here at the world model. That's, like I say, yesterday was a lot of earthquake activity, and all over the place it seemed like. Big time down here across the area of Tonga, Solomon Islands. The latest one is north of Vanuatu. Let's see what this one is here. One of the latest quakes, about 7 o'clock this morning here, my time, near the Santa Cruz Islands area, Solomon Islands, for a 5.3, 124 kilometers deep. 124 miles deep, excuse me. I'm used to using kilometers in mathematical equations. Certain ones, that is. But aside from that, let's see, 4.7, 4.6. Where are those at? Oh, they're further over here across the west Philippines area. Those earthquakes are from today as well. So the only one new down here across this area is going to be this Solomon Islands one, 5.3. So we'll continue to watch this. It really kicked up out of the blue yesterday, but it appears as though it's tapered things off here across the Southern California area for now. Just for now. Nothing really going on across New Zealand. Some older movement quakes there from yesterday. Newer quake into Australia, 3.5 from this morning, it looks like. This area has been getting a whole bunch of earthquake activity recently, which is a little unusual. I mean, they do get some of these intraplate earthquakes out here, but it's been somewhat more amplified in this general area than I can recall here in the recent past. But and New Zealand, even though they moved down here with a bunch of threes, they haven't had any major adjustment across this plate boundary. So it's definitely something to watch here. Japan, couple earthquakes there from yesterday. Nothing showing up there from today. Well, looks like, take that back. Here on the globe, a 3.5. EMSC model reporting that recent earthquake right now. Maybe right there, that looks like maybe the 3.5 showing up on the Japan station. There's the Cal State Bakersfield station right there, a little spike of an earthquake. But aside from that, moving up north here, got a little swarm of activity off the coast of Russia, the northern edge here of the Kamchatka Trench, Kuril-Kamchatka Trench area. USGS reporting 4.9 earthquake here about 3 o'clock local time, my time, along that area. Alaska region, very similar to California in terms of the multitude of quakes out here on any given day. As far as 2.5 and above, there's a handful, most of those from yesterday, so you can basically call this a typical day up there in Alaska. There's always earthquake activity occurring around around the plate boundaries. A lot of it too small to be felt, but it's there. Out in the middle of it all, Hawaii, anything major going on here? Yesterday we had a fairly significant increase here across the area in terms of inflation. So let's see what we got here today. check out the deformation data, and then we'll go from there. There's our huge, well, not a huge one, but a very sharp rise in terms of the inflation yesterday, and it looks like we're starting to go back up as well. This comes after about a week of, I don't know, just fairly stationary activity, meaning magma accumulation underneath the area. Neither displacement or inflow was observed in the past week until about yesterday. We've seen a pretty sharp rise out here, noticeable on the past month as well. So just a waiting game, I guess. I mean, there's still some earthquake activity out here, most of it from yesterday, though, during that little magma movement that was going on there yesterday in this area. Trail of activity from the summit region stretching off towards the Middle East Rift Zone. Some of it going down here towards the Lower East Rift Zone area, but not so much. It's just I'm a little uncertain onto what is going to take place here. We could just see this continue for a little while before we get some further inflow of magma from the deeper areas below, which is the Pahala area. A lot of deeper activity here. And then the plumbing system of the magma chambers and whatnot feeding the volcanoes out here. Obviously, it's a hot spot, right? Big island of Hawaii and the chain of islands out here throughout time as the Pacific plate moves off to the northwest. So we'll continue to watch Hawaii. Nothing, obviously nothing of any major change for now. Just that little bit of inflation from yesterday. Puerto Rico, got one earthquake here outside of San Juan, 2.86 miles here underneath the area. Really haven't seen a whole lot of movement, significant movement out here in a little while. 4.5 it looks like from yesterday around the Santiago de Cuba of Cuba region here, northern edge of the Caribbean plate. Aside from that, let's see what else we got. That's from yesterday, 4.2 or 4.5, excuse me. No, that's a 4.2. Correcting myself. That's a good sign, right? South America area, a couple fours out there. A lot of that from yesterday in this little cluster. More newer activity down south here. It looks like working its way across the Peru Chile Trench. Extreme southern end. Major subduction zone out there. So this earthquake, though, 4.5 this morning. About 9 miles deep here, right on the subduction zone area. Of course, this is a region down here where they've seen that big old 9.5 earthquake, the largest ever recorded earthquake out there. I want to check that out real quick and see. That area can see some big earthquakes, no doubt. I want to show you guys the 7.0 earthquakes historically out there. Just along that section of the Peru Chile Trench here. We're going to go roughly about here, southward. I've got to include the subduction zone surface level. And that should be it. And got about 37 earthquakes here of various magnitudes, including the biggest earthquake ever recorded, the 9.5 earthquake back in 1960. That's right around the where's Santiago, Chile, right here. So this activity at 9.5 is a little bit further south. This 9.5 occurring south of the activity that we're seeing today, right around this area. So yeah, no doubt this area can see some big time earthquakes. Goodness, that was a big one. Now weather is, I don't think there's enough strain to build up enough for a 9.5 out here. Generally in this area, there may be some other areas of the Peru Chile Trench that have not seen a major release out here. It's a very lengthy subduction zone that extends right about here northward, all the way up the coast of Peru, and you got the Ecuador Trench up here, Colombia area, Colombian Trench. It's a fairly lengthy subduction zone, so I'm sure certain areas are capable of producing potentially something similar. 8.8 back in 2010, 8.5, 1922. Yeah, a lot of eights. And again, that's one thing we haven't seen in a couple years now is an 8-pointer. and and I'm talking as the global aspect of things as a whole. We should have seen an 8-pointer somewhere out here. That's just the occurrence level of an 8-pointer runs every year. If not every year, it's every other year, and we haven't seen an 8-pointer since 2021. So 3 years now. Space weather activity. We had a little bit of an explosion out there on the it looks like the northwestern quadrant of the sun, where we've seen a magnetic filament erupt earlier this morning. It did produce a CME. It looks like things may be headed this way as well. Look at that massive full halo CME. Part of it is Earth directed. A moderate G2 geomagnetic storm watch was added. So it looks like around the September 10th period, which is the UTC time here, we got a chance for some auroras. This is tonight. This is tomorrow night. It'll be on probably Tuesday night here when we'll see the potential effects of that CME hit the planet and produce maybe a G2 class storm. That would be pretty cool, and also dependent on the solar conditions there of the BZ component of the interplanetary magnetic field, which will either suppress this activity or allow it to spark up all these auroras here on most likely Tuesday night. This is for Monday night. Not that big of a deal. Tuesday night, that line will be much lower, and if things play out right, we could see it down here across some of these middle latitude states as well. So we'll come back and check on that probably tomorrow, and definitely early Tuesday morning. Let me go over here and check out the official image here. See if they've updated this or not. It is. Okay, so let's see where that CME is. Oop. Here's the sun, obviously, green, Earth. Watch for there we go. There's that CME. Got a lot of plasma cloud, but it splits right there, leaving Earth right in the center of the that magnetic filament explosion today, the plasma density, plasma cloud that it shot off. So a little uncertain on if this is going to be a decent event, but look at that, it splits, at least in this level in terms of the plasma density. The radial velocity, the speed here, let's take a look at that and see. Yeah, well, we're just barely going to get it hit. This is one of those things here where we've seen it in the past, where they'll show this model and forecast a G2 class storm, and nothing will happen. So this is right on that fine line of something's going to happen or it's not. Looking at that, there's a split. It's somewhat dodging here in terms of the velocity, the speed here as well. I guess we'll just have to wait until Tuesday night and see what happens here. But we'll check back on it tomorrow for sure. Flaring activity, aside from that eruption there, looks fairly minimal. I mean, we got 15% chance for X-flare. I don't think we're going to see anything really major pick up until the return of some very active regions out here on the far side of the sun. Yesterday, this was at 9.7. So what happened here? How come we went back a couple? Oh, now it's 9.7. That's kind of weird. The thumbnail's not at 9.7. Uh-oh. Let me see here. Yeah, when you click on it, though, it's 9.7. So either way, this is about a day old. Here's the far side of the sun, Earth-facing side, current sunspots, which are fairly wimpy. There's not a whole lot of complexity out here. But in the past few days here, we've seen a number of large explosions on the far side of the sun, and I believe this is the culprit, a giant sunspot there on the far side. That will be cresting around the eastern limb here into the Earth-directed view in the coming days. Again, this is 1 day behind, maybe almost 2 days, so it could be getting a little bit closer over here. We'll see this peak sometime next week, this coming week. And if all holds up well, we could be looking at return of some very active conditions with flaring. And that was a former sunspot that had already been here on the Earth-facing side, 3792. last time it was around here. And who knows how many times before that. These sunspots stay consistent, they grow, and then they weaken. And it's basically the same sunspots. And they come back around the far side of the sun into the Earth-facing side again, and they get renamed. So it's hard to keep track of all of these sunspots and their new names once they come out here onto the visible disk. I kind of wish they would just, if you could watch the far side like this on the stereo ahead image, why not keep it the same sunspot number? That way we can, associate the activity with it. But anyway, we'll watch for that here next week and see what happens. Storm Prediction Center, not a whole lot for severe weather. Just some general thunderstorm activity out here across the west, Intermountain West areas as well. Really nothing in terms of severe weather out here at all. Just some nice thunderstorm showers out there. That would be nice here in California. Taking a look here at the forecast, we do have a tropical system down in the Gulf of Mexico. That could stir up a little trouble this coming week. For the folks down there in Texas, maybe Louisiana. It does look like it wants to appear and transfer into a strong hurricane before making landfall there across the Texas Gulf Coast and Louisiana as well. So let's run over here and check out the latest information on this tropical system. Right here real quick. So this is going to be Invest 91, which is currently in the Gulf of Mexico as a low. Pressure is still quite high. It's just a cluster of unorganized thunderstorm activity. But it appears as though we could amplify that pretty soon. Look at these spaghetti models. Similar to the track I just showed you there on the GFS model, hitting the southeastern Texas, Louisiana area. And I smelled something burning. The majority of the storms, of the strength of this storm here, Category 1, maybe up into Category 2 here, so we'll have to watch that as we get closer there to the date. All right, I better go check on that. It smells something weird. I'll chat with you guys a little bit later on. Seismograph stations out there look pretty quiet for now. Well, a couple spikes there on the Bakersfield station, but we'll continue to keep an eye there on Southern California. Remember, these earthquakes and swarms occur and come and go in waves out here. A little bit of movement there along the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault within the last 5 minutes, it looks like. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later, folks. Stay safe.